All right, so word 2 is friendship. And I'm not talking about surface level friendship. I'm talking about authentic, true, real, beautiful friendships. And I'm excited to dive more into that because we talked earlier about how we are a gift. And here's the thing. A gift doesn't make sense unless it is given. In fact, it doesn't become a gift until it is given freely and out of love to someone else. And the Lord has given us freely and out of love, like the gift of our lives. And we can discover more of who we are through giving ourselves away, through sacrificing for those in our life in beautiful and uplifting, virtuous ways. And that is so cool. And it speaks to our need for communion. We desire connection. That's why we're on social media. If we're on there, we want to commune with other people. And this is good. In fact, not only is it written into the desires of our souls, like the desire I talked about earlier, it's even written into our bodies. I'll be honest, ladies, our bodies wouldn't make sense to aliens coming to Earth unless they had a male body to figure things out. Our breasts, they don't make sense unless we recognize that they are created to help sustain and nourish life in the world. That's crazy, and we carry them around all the time. And I don't know about you, but every month I get a little reminder that I have a uterus. And okay, it's normally not my favorite week of the month, right? But it's so cool that I literally have an organ in my body that does nothing for myself. It only exists for the possibility of sacrificing itself for another life. That is powerful. That is womanhood. That is authentic femininity. So you might have heard a lot of different things about what does it mean to be a woman, but today I want to say that it means to embrace who we are. Edith Stein, this incredible philosopher who is one of the best philosophers of our century, who later became a nun, had a quote that says, "Everything a woman does, she doesn't do as a genderless creature. She does as a woman." And what she's getting at is we don't have to fall into feminine stereotypes to be womanly. We just have to be ourselves. No matter what we do, it's feminine because we're a woman, whether we're taking a fish off of a hook or whether we are wearing a dress and twirling around. And so if you have felt put in a box by stereotypes, I am sorry, but I want you to feel empowered to know that being a woman is one of the strongest things ever because we are naturally sacrificial, loving, and life-giving. And what does this have to do about friendship? It's the fact that we as women are called to do this in all of our relationships. We're called to spiritual motherhood. We're called to physical mother if we're called to that vocation, and we're called to be a spiritual mother no matter what. There's religious sisters in my life who have totally given me life in so many ways. Like a physical mother carries a baby in her womb, they have cradled me and nourished me in so many ways when I was completely unable to take care of myself. And that is so cool. So I want us to remind ourselves that we have powers and gifts that are specific to our hearts because of our sexuality as women. And we also have specific desires. And we can go a lot of places to have our desires for communion and connection to be fulfilled. And some of them are not the best. I got into a relationship one time in college that wasn't the best. But honestly, I was so blind to it because I wanted to love. And it's so good that we want to love. But we have to look honestly at our relationships to make sure they're authentically loving and that they respect both us and the other person. So here I was in this relationship and it turned out to not be the healthiest. And one day my roommate, who was completely unreligious, looked at me and said, "Alex, I don't like the way your boyfriend talks about women. Are you happy?" And those simple words, "Are you happy?" shattered my reality because I realized I wasn't. And finally, I could be honest with someone enough that it empowered me so much to break up the relationship the next day. Because I knew that I deserved more and I needed to focus first and foremost on my relationship with God. Later on in my life, more healthy relationships were created, but not without a lot of fall and rising again. So we are made for love, right? And yet love has this evil twin sister called lust. Something that can look like love from the outside sometimes, but actually is the exact opposite. Because where love wills the good of another and sacrifices for them, lust wills the good of themselves, even if it requires sacrificing the good of the other person. And you can look around and see this in so many places. I'm so sorry for anyone who has experienced this, no matter what end they were on it. We're in a world that is a pornographic culture. We see things even on social media all the time that tell us who to be and what to look like, that objectify both women and men. It uses them. It uses their body for pleasure instead of truly seeking the person. There's a reason why we see some magazine covers at the store and don't say, I wonder what her name is. We just think, oh, look at her waist, or oh, look at her hair, her eyebrows, whatever it might be. because that image isn't calling us to respond to their full personhood, but we deserve to be loved and responded to in accordance to our full personhood. I remember I was at a party one time, and there was an incredible band there, and one of the guys I thought was just like the cutest guy, and after the performance, he walked up to me, and I almost did a double take. I was like, this doesn't happen to me. People I like from afar don't come up and talk to me, and my heart was like fluttering. And he comes up to me and he offers me a drink, and I was like, oh, thank you, but I'm actually designated driving. I was over 21 at the time, so it was okay to drink, but I was like, I'm actually driving today, so I can't. And I was expecting him to say, okay, well, tell me more about yourself, lovely human, but instead he just walked away. And my heart was just like, what just happened? Because I realized if I had said yes to this thing, what might have preceded might have looked like him wanting to know me, him wanting to love me, but it would have actually been lust. Because apparently he wanted something from me that I wasn't going to give him. And that hurt to know. It hurt to know that I was only seen for what I could give someone with my body. And so I want all of you to know that we are more than that. And I'm so sorry for all the ways the world has taught you otherwise. I'm so sorry if you have fallen into pornography at some point of your life, because pornography industry is literally buying out toy site domains so that they can hook people on that stuff so early on. Pornography, actually 95% of it shows men verbally or physically putting down women. And this just shows women who are watching what they deserve or what they think they should deserve. And it shows men who are watching how they should treat women. And this is detrimental to our culture. So if you've been affected by this in any way, and I'm sure if you're a woman, whether firsthand or secondhand you have, I'm so sorry. And I want you to know that you don't have to live in shame if this is something you've encountered, because the world is against you. You can actually accept God's mercy and love and walk forward renewed. And it will take work and it will take time. But I want you to know that you are good no matter where you've been, what you've done, what you've come across. That does not define you. What does this have to do with friendship? It has to do with the fact that chastity is the virtue that gives us friendships in our life that will make us the women that God calls us to be. Chastity is the virtue of living out our sexuality, whether that be physical or spiritual sexuality, just what it means to be a woman, living that out in a way that is consistent with God's plan for us. And that is so, so good and beautiful. I remember my junior year of college, I was so excited to start living chastity in a renewed way in my life. Me and my boyfriend at the time, we were reading a book on how we could live out chastity well. And we were actually long distance, so I went to visit him. And we finally got to practice this virtue of chastity. And I remember him looking at me over the course of that week, one of these days, and saying, Alex, we've been dating 6 months, but this is the first time I look at you. I know I'm loving, I know I'm being loved, and I know that you're my best friend. And that was what we had been missing in our relationship, was when we were using each other, we were using each other as objects, even though it didn't feel like that, even though we felt like we were expressing love, instead of loving the person, instead of actually growing in this intimate friendship. Because when I left that week, I knew that I had been loved, that I had been loving, and I knew that even if we broke up the next day, I would have no regret for my time spent with him, because we grew in friendship, we grew in our love for the Lord, and we grew as human beings. And that is the friendship we are called to in our relationships with both men and women, to see the people around us as gifts from the Lord, to have the Lord give us eternal vision. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says that chastity is the promise for immortality. That sounds like a crazy statement, but what it means is that chastity helps us to see people how God sees us, and so it helps us live a little taste of heaven here on earth. It helps us to look at ourselves and know that we are so good, to know our sexuality is good, to know our bodies are so good, and that we have the opportunity to live out this gift that God has given us in a way that glorifies Him, in a way that protects our hearts. So I invite us all to enter into real friendships today, friendships that hold each other accountable for loving and living right and authentically, that put boundaries in place that are good. And some basic boundaries I would love to share with you guys is, first of all, sexting does not uphold the human person. I'm so sorry if you've been asked for a picture, if you felt pressured to send one. Please share with someone if you have, because that is not a pressure you have to go through alone. You don't have to protect somebody who asked you for sex. You can tell your parents about it. It is okay to do. But I'm so sorry if that is something you've encountered, because what that is doing is not love. It's objectifying you to pixels on a screen instead of pursuing you for the fullness of your personhood and your goodness and your glory that you deserve to be seen. So I want to put that out there because I don't think it's talked about enough as a trial that you guys endure in this generation. And then also to say, in a dating relationship, you should live in the light. You should be able to talk to their family. You should be able to go on dates. If you find yourself sitting in the dark all the time, all alone, that's probably not a good sign. How far is too far is, yes, the wrong question, because you should be saying, how far can we protect each other's hearts instead of how far can we go physically? But as just like a basic overview, too far is making out and anything past that, because there's a difference between affection, just sharing love in a wonderful way, whether it be a kiss or a handshake or putting chocolate in their locker, versus arousal, which is biologically preparing the body for sex. So I want to share that with you guys, and I'm actually going to link a talk below in the description if you want to learn more about dating, about boundaries from some amazing women. I'll find some great talks for you guys because I think that's an important topic to share. However, we need friendships in this pursuit to hold us accountable for the relationships we have in all areas of our life. Like that girl who asked me, "Are you happy?" That totally changed my life. We need to be that to other women, and we need to be that to each other. These are the relationships that are going to get us to heaven. And we can live in them with freedom if we know who we are and know that we are good.